DevOps salaries at the moment in the UK are kind of crazy, and I'm going to show you the data over the past 6 months. You might be surprised at how big of a difference the cloud provider makes to how much you're actually going to get paid. Now, the website I'm using is IT Jobs Watch, which is, I don't know how popular this is in the UK, but a lot of people in the industry don't actually know about it, but it's something that I always like to check just to see where the industry is going. Now, the website isn't very amazing at categorizing data, so you have to fine tune it to take a look at all the different job titles and kind of gather an average. So for example, if we take a look at a DevOps engineer, just searching the job title, the AWS DevOps engineer, the median average salary is £110,000. Now, a lot of people like to say technology salaries in the UK are not very good, but that is almost 5 times above the average UK salary on the whole. Then you have GCP DevOps engineer, which is 77,500, which is supposedly remained quite the same. But the AWS one is at 30.95%, which is absolutely insane. Then if we take a look at Azure DevOps engineer, it's 65,000, which is down 7%. Now that is a drastic difference. We paid £40,000 less just because you're using Azure over AWS. Now just to clarify one thing I haven't mentioned there, what this website does is it scrapes job boards to find job titles. So if a job is listed AWS DevOps engineer, it pulls that one in. If it's just called DevOps engineer, it's going to pull that one in. That's how it gets the data. And we know it's working like that because if you take a look at just a generic DevOps engineer job title, it's around about in the middle of both. So that's how you're going to get that median average. Again, and it's still up 16%. And what's actually really noticeable is that the live jobs, there aren't many, but there are still plenty being added. And you may be wondering, why is this one less than the job title that's listed as AWS DevOps Engineer? This one's listed as Senior. The reality is some companies just don't advertise titles with the level of seniority. So if there's more jobs listed as AWS DevOps Engineer, which there is, that's how it's pulling in the average. Now the biggest question everyone wants to know is, why is Azure so much lower compared to AWS? Because that's really important. Because if you're going to choose a cloud provider that you want to learn to try land a job, you probably want to do the one that's going to pay the most money, right? Or the one you enjoy the most, or the one that's easier to transfer. Now, focusing on that point of easier to transfer. The reason Azure is lower, in my opinion, from what I see in the industry as someone who's worked in the industry just over 3 years now in consulting, primarily just as a cloud engineer or a DevOps engineer. It is easier for a large service-based enterprise organization to migrate to Azure from on-prem. The reason for that is they're already used to Microsoft products. They're probably using M365, Active Directory, etc. And they're probably going to have a lot of employees. They're going to have shareholders. Salaries aren't as good at enterprises as they are at the smaller to medium companies or startups. Now, if a group of devs decide to build a company, they're going to put it on AWS. And you're probably wondering, well, why are they going to do that? Well, it's just what they are used to. And it's the better product. It has more services. They're easier to use, in my opinion anyway. So devs are going to opt for that. If you have a startup that does pretty well and you have, 20 to 30 staff and your annual recurring revenue is 5 to 10 million, you can afford to pay your engineers more money. Usually the competition to get into a startup is pretty difficult. They hire the best engineers because they have the money to give them to them. If you're a large enterprise that's gradually migrating over to Azure, you can afford to say to an internal team member, hey, you're a junior sysadmin, you're a sysadmin, you're an on-prem infrastructure engineer. Would you like to learn cloud? We'll give you an extra 5 or 10 grand a year. And we know that on-prem engineers are paid less than cloud. So if you can just tell people to bring their existing transferable skills over to cloud, learn it, get an extra 10 grand a year, that is what is bringing that average down, in my opinion. What one should you learn for the future? I personally, doesn't matter in my opinion. If you're a good engineer, you'll get paid more than these median averages anyway. I use both AWS, I use Azure. I have never used GCP. The company I work for, we don't even provide professional services for it because there just isn't that much of a market for it in the UK. But I thought this video might be really interesting for people who are interested in these type of salaries. If you want me to do another video where I'm going more down into it, taking a comparison to platform engineers and cloud engineers, that could be also quite interesting. But comment down below, let me know what you think, if you're paid more than this, if it's similar in America, because I have a lot of American subscribers. I don't know if you have an equivalent website, I couldn't find one, let me know if you do.